Hey, welcome. This is Pastor Drew Bratchford from Riverside Christian Assembly here with you once again with the fourth in the lessons of the Judges. We've been going through looking at the sin cycle, which happens almost every time after a judge. Othniel, then the people forsook the Lord and were enslaved. They cried out to God. Then God raised up Ehud. Things were well for a while, but when Ehud passes on, God raised up another deliverer, Shamgar, because the people needed saving. After Shamgar, there was another time where for 20 years the people were enslaved to Jabin, the king of Canaan. He had 900 iron chariots and a general named Sisera who overcame the Israelites. We'll see in the story today, the key phrase is be willing to offer yourself. It's not natural to throw yourself in front of somebody else, to take the wound and allow somebody else to be safe. Naturally, we want to preserve ourselves, but will you willingly give of yourself? That's what God needs for us to do, to break out of the sin cycle and to be the deliverer that God's calling us. You see, in the days of Deborah, nobody walked the streets. Village life ceased. Jabin and Sisera had this confederacy, had this 900 iron chariots that just ran everything. There wasn't a spear or shield to be found anywhere. But God had called Deborah to be a judge, so people would come to her and she would administer justice to them. She was in the place between Ramah and Bethel, the place of the high places and the house of God. And that's where everyone would come to her. And after 20 years of this oppression, she called on Barak. And Barak was a mighty man, one of the princes, the son of Abinoam. The name Barak means lightning, and the name Abinoam means pleasantness. He probably had a pretty wealthy life of ease considering the state of the nation. And she came to him and said, hasn't God called you to raise up the army and deliver your people? But he was hesitating. He wouldn't come. And so finally he replies back and says, I'll come to Mount Tabor and I'll rally the troops if you'll be there with me. So I'll be there with you, but you've lost your blessing. God's going to give the glory of this victory to a woman because you wouldn't go when God called you. He already called you. And so the battle cry went out to all the tribes, to all the clans, to all the families. And in chapter 4 and chapter 5, the book of Judges, we see who came and who didn't come. And those that came, some gave their best soldiers. Others were cursed because they didn't come. And so as the battle line was set in array, Jabin had heard that this army was gathered at Mount Tabor, and so he sent his 900 chariots of iron, and they went through this path of a wadi, a dried up river. And as the two met in combat, the Lord sent a great storm, and that dried up river became mud, and all those iron chariots worked against Jabin and Sisera, and Barak wrought a mighty victory. And as the Canaanites were fleeing, as they were leaving, trying to save themselves, the general Sisera, he hid in the tent of a nearby ally. He came to the tent of a man named Heber. Heber wasn't there, but his wife Jael was. And he said, Jael, will you please hide me? No doubt that Heber had probably helped make some of those, and there was an alliance between the two groups, make some of those chariots. And so perhaps she knew him. She said, come in. She says, please hide me. Give me some water. I'm thirsty. I'm tired. I need a break. I need to rest. And she said, here, go to sleep right here. Here's some milk. She gave him some milk, and as he drank it, he was lulled to sleep. Well, she saw that he was defeated, and she saw her opportunity. So she took the workman's hammer, and she took a tent peg, and she drove it right through the head of Sisera. When Deborah and Barak came looking for this general, they couldn't find him anywhere until they came to Jael, and there was the body. And they wrought a great victory that day. The victory was so phenomenal, in fact, that they grew stronger and stronger. By the end of it, said they were like the sun in its full strength. And in chapter 5, we see Deborah writes a song praising all those that came. You see, Jabin, his name means knowledge. You can't dwell in the promised land by just knowledge. Sisera had all the money, all the things that money could buy, all the weaponry, but that doesn't mean you can dwell in God's promised land with that. The name Deborah means honeybee. You see, Jael brought the milk, and Deborah was the honey, the land flowing with milk and honey. If you want to dwell in God's land, you got to do it God's way. There's a couple questions that people asked in this story. Well, good questions, the same question people are asking in our day and age. Where are all the men? He was called to go and deliver. He was called to lead, and he didn't want to do it. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 16, it says that men should lead, that men should rule. In 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, it says, I do not permit a woman to have authority over men. Titus chapter 2, verse 5, wives, obey your husbands, for this is right. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14, it goes so far, if you have a question, talk to your husband. God has ordained an order. It doesn't mean he's worth more or more valuable. It just means man is made differently and had a different original purpose than woman. But when men don't step up to the plate, things will go wrong. And men, if we don't step up to the plate and lead, we'll not only have things go wrong, but we'll lose the glory that should be ours. Perhaps Barak was living a life of ease. That's what his father's name means. Woe to those that are at ease in Zion. Well, when the battle cry went out, some showed up and some didn't show up. Some of the tribes came and some brought their very best and others didn't. You see, some men need what Barak needed. They need a lot of encouragement. Men, I want to encourage you. You can do it. God has called you to lead. Some need accompaniment. He said, I'll come only if you come with me. But what we all need is divine intervention. We must hear the call of God on our life to lead, and we must hear the call of our God on our life to sacrifice, to be willing to lay down our lives. The tribes who went, the tribe of Ephraim, they showed up. Those that fought against Amalek, they sent the best warriors they had. The city of Machar came and they brought the best rulers that they could send. The tribe of Zebulun came and they bore the recruiter's staff. They tried to get as many people to come along with them. Issachar came with their princes, with their wealthy people. Naphtali came from the heights of the battlefield. Those who ignored the danger. But some ignored the call. We see the tribe of Reuben was sitting among the sheepfolds. They were cursed because there was great searching of heart. When everybody was lining up under the banners and the tribe of Reuben wasn't found, some of the other tribes said, hey, where's Reuben? Benjamin said to Ephraim, I thought Reuben was coming. He said, well, there's great searching of heart. I feel that very often as a pastor when people don't come to church. I think, where are they? What are they doing that's so much more important than studying the things of God, than being here with their church family? It makes other people wonder, when you're not there, what's going on and what's so much more important than that. The tribe of Gad didn't come and said they stayed by the seashore. They were busy making sandcastles with Dan, and it caused others to lose heart. You see, nobody lives to themselves and nobody dies to themselves. And part of willingly offering yourself unto the Lord is showing up. That when the battle cry goes out, that you come to it. Asher stayed back. In chapter 5, verse 23, it says, Cursed is the city of Meroz, for they did not come. Curse them bitterly, says the angel of the Lord. Their inability to show up cost them greatly. And it wasn't a man that cursed them, it was the angel of the Lord that cursed them. In the story of Gideon, we see some examples of those that didn't show up. When Gideon's looking for supplies at the city of Succoth and they don't give it to him, he comes back and he wins the victory. And he takes the 77 elders and he says, you didn't help me. He strips off their clothes and rips them with thorns. They didn't show up, and so it cost them. At the end of the book of Judges, there's a civil war. And there was a vow that was made that they wouldn't allow any of their children to marry the Benjaminites, who would cause a lot of trouble. Well, there was one city that didn't show up, Jabesh-Gilead. They didn't make that promise. And so what happened is they had to find wives for those remnant of Benjamin. So they went and they kidnapped all the women they could from Jabesh-Gilead and they gave them over. Because they didn't make a promise, they didn't make a vow, it cost them. If you don't show up where you're supposed to show up, it'll cost you. You will get stuck in that sin cycle if you are not accountable to other people when you're supposed to be accountable. You will never deliver your people if you don't hear the call of God on your life. There's a great call that God has. Many are called, but few are chosen. In our church, we have a karate program. It's free. You are welcome to become a black belt, yet only a handful ever have. Why? Because many hear the call, and many never show up. And those that do show up, many of them lose heart. You see, we have to heed the call of God and see that there's a great opportunity. Opportunities are all around us. JL realized that. An opportunity for payday, for fame, for greatness, for glory, walked right into her tent. And she just used the tools that she had. She used a hammer and a tent peg. And she said, God has given me this victory. You see, that's the truth of it. God had already given them the victory. As we want to lead more people to Christ and make disciples, there's people all around us that need Jesus. People are coming into our tent all the time. We need to seize the opportunity and use the things that we have to use. You see, she went into action and it brought about great praise because of it. Deborah tells him, recall the good things that God has done. Renew yourself before him. Be prepared. You see, she called Barak to go up to Mount Tabor and to get the glory and have this great victory. But he didn't seize the opportunity right away. He hesitated. He delayed. Sometimes the greatest ability you have is your availability. That your recognition of opportunity all around you. There does come a time when you have to proceed, when you have to move forward. But today, will you offer yourself to God and say, God, I want to willingly offer myself before you. The truth in life is you will reap what you sow. If you willingly offer yourself to others and to God, it'll come right back to you. You'll be blessed. Deborah gives a song at the end. It's a poem. And it's a little bit graphic, and you see some of the imagery. She talks about how Sisera's mother was waiting for him to come back and have all these maidens and have all these slaves and have all this wealth from the pillage. But the opposite is what happened. And in fact, there's some very graphic language about how he would, when Jael took that tent peg and smashed it through his head, how he went up and he came down, how he went up and came down. And the idea behind it is that Sisera thought he was going to have his way, and he's the one that got destroyed. He's the one that got defeated. He sowed all these seeds of destruction, and then he reaped the whirlwind. But those that willingly offered themselves and said, I'll go. I'll show up where I'm supposed to show up. I'll be there. I'll give of myself. I'll give of my resources. I'll give the best I have. It says they grew brighter and brighter like the sun in its full strength. Friend, shouldn't that be our prayer? That we could be that sun that sees people set free, that's that light that those in darkness could follow. Today, will you come before your God and say, God, I want to offer myself to you. Lord, I want to be at church, the place I should be. God, I'm going to be in my word. I'm going to be at work. I'm going to be with my family. God, I'm going to be the places that you've called me to be. I'm going to stop ignoring the call of God on my life. I see opportunities all around me. Lord, give me the strength to finish.